Hi, this is Kim from KimberlyKoehler.com, and this is your Tuesday tip. So we have the Rings Every Day challenge coming up starting April 1st. So I just wanted to go through a few materials and tools that you need to make rings. So if you're joining in with us for Rings Every Day in April, then this is a good introduction for you to get ready and prepared to make rings every day. And even if you're not joining us or you're seeing this video after the fact, this is a good introduction to the tools and materials that you might need when you're making wire wrapped rings. So these are the tools you need to make wire wrapped rings. You don't necessarily need all the tools I'm going to show you for every wire wrapped ring. Some of them are just for special rings, but I'm going to show you all the tools you'll need if you're doing the Rings Everyday Month premium version. And you may need these rings also for Rings Everyday Month for the free version too, and just in general if you're making rings. I'm going to show you a little bit how to use them and kind of why we use them. So to start off, these are wire cutters. Some people call them flush cutters. They have two sides. There's this back kind of flat side and this front kind of concave side. Depending which way you cut will depend on the kind of cut you're going to get. So if you cut toward your work from the flat side, like this, that is a flush cut. So you have a nice flat side. That is basically what I always tell you to cut with. If you've watched any of my ECT TV videos, I usually tell you to start with a flush cut. If you cut from this side, like toward your work, toward the part that you're keeping, you get a pinch cut. I know you can't really see the video because it's too far, but it kind of has like a pointy end, and that is not typically what you want to use when you're working with wire at all to make jewelry. So I often get asked for recommendations for what brands or types of tools to use. My wire cutters are electronics, and they have a very comfortable handle. They work awesome. It makes a huge difference when you have good, nice tools that you like to use. These are pricey, but worth every penny. If you're just getting started and you're not sure if you want to invest a lot of money, or you don't have a lot of money to invest, I always say just get the best tools you can with the money you have budgeted for it for now. Or you could even use wire cutters that you might just have at your house. Oftentimes just regular pliers have wire cutters. They're not as nice. They're going to be frustrating if you're going to be making a lot of jewelry. But if you're just getting started and you're not sure yet, that sort of thing, then you don't have to go out and buy an expensive pair of wire cutters or any tool to get started. Just get the best you can with the money you have budgeted for that. So how much money are you expecting to spend? You can go to different craft stores that have jewelry sections. Michael's, Joann's, AC Moore all have jewelry sections. And they all have coupons all the time. And then I'm not sure about Joann's, but I know the other places have sets of tools, like kind of like beginner tools. Just get a coupon. You can get them online. You don't even have to get the paper or anything. And get yourself just get a whole starter set for tools, and then you can get started. If you're already making jewelry and you already know that you want to upgrade, or you want to get a good brand, I highly recommend Tronics for everything. I just have the wire cutters at this point, and that's what I suggest. So those are wire cutters. Since we're dealing with wire cutters are very important. So since we're making rings, a ring mandrel is going to be very important. Basically, it has a gradiated, like a gradiated cylinder here, and it has all the numbers for the different sizes marked in it. This one I use most often is made out of plastic. It's what I got from the very beginning, and I've been using ever since. We are going to be using wire wrapping techniques, and we're not really going to be hammering. So if what you have is this kind of hard plastic ring sizer, it's going to be fine for these tutorials I'm going to be showing you. For rings everyday month. There are different kinds. There are like a heavy metal one, which is good if you're going to be needing to hammer or that sort of thing. I just recently saw an aluminum one. There are wooden ones. Any of them are fine for the purposes. This is actually called a ring sizer, so it really is, its purpose is really just to find, you can slide the ring on and see what size it is. It's not really made for making rings, but that's what I use it for, and a lot of people do. So you can find these pretty inexpensively around, and actually the metal ones I have seen recently at different stores too. So a lot of this stuff is becoming easier and easier to find in local stores. You know, if you have a local craft store near you, you can usually find a lot of these tools. So that is a ring mandrel. So these are chain nose pliers, and you need these to make rings as well. These are like your average everyday jewelry making pliers. They're flat on the inside. These are chain nose. They have like the bump up here. You don't need to use chain nose. You could use flat nose. Flat nose are the kind that are kind of flat on the top. Either of those are fine. Basically anything that's kind of flat on the inside, because these are what we kind of do our finishing work with. So they need to not have any teeth or anything on the inside, so we don't mark up the wire. So those are chain nose pliers. And these are round nose pliers. They're called that because they're round. The kind of the barrels of the plier are round. They're also smooth, but these are round. And sometimes the video, it doesn't necessarily look that way, but these are round. You don't need these for all rings. This is a tool that you'll only be using for a few of the rings that we're making, but it's good to have it on hand. You make a lot of spirals, and I often will use round nose pliers if it's an open spiral to, well, I'm wearing a ring, so you can see like the middle. To start the spiral, oftentimes you will use chain nose pliers to make spirals. Well, you need them too. But it's good to have these on hand if you have them handy, but it's only for a few of the tutorials. And it's always good to have a ruler or a measuring tape of some sort handy so you can measure out your wire and you don't have to guess. Okay, so this is my secret tool I use for ring making that I only normally share in my tutorials, but I'm sharing it now publicly. These are serrated, so they have teeth, chain nose pliers. And these are Craftsman. These are what you'd find at a hardware store. They're not any kind of special pliers. The only thing that's special is they actually have teeth in them. And I use these because when we're doing wire wrapping for several of the rings that you know we're going to be making in Rings Everyday Month, when you're doing the side, like here for example, you want to be able to pull the wraps very tightly. And the easiest way to do that is to have a pair of pliers with teeth so you can get a good grasp and really pull hard. Now, and you're thinking, won't that leave marks on my wire? Yes, it absolutely does, and it's okay because you just use them on the end of the wire, and then that part you cut off. So that is why these are okay in this circumstance, and now you know my secret weapon. So now we're going to go over the materials that you'll need for the rings, for Rings Everyday Month, or for whenever you're making rings in general. The first thing you're going to want is wire, because we're making wire wrapped rings. So, mostly what you'll be using is 20 gauge half hard wire. Now, when you're first learning, if it's the first time you're trying a new ring and you're unsure of yourself, or if you're designing rings, I recommend that you use a less expensive wire. So this is a tarnish resistant copper wire that's silver plated, and you can get it in big spools like this. This is brass wire, which is also inexpensive, or you can use copper wire, which I didn't grab any right now, but any of those are fine, and you may even like those wires to use for all your rings anyway. If you do not have any allergies to metal, like the metal doesn't turn your finger green when you're wearing it, then you're fine with either of these wires. They're perfectly acceptable. Copper is very popular. People use that all the time in jewelry. I happen to love brass a lot. And then as you get more practice, or you feel more comfortable, then I suggest sterling silver for your rings. What we'll mostly be using is 20 gauge half hard wire. I have a little note about the hardness of the wire. So that half hard part, I know that a lot of people who watch my videos have unique abilities, so it's possible that half hard might be a little bit hard for you to use. You might find it difficult to manipulate. Maybe your hands aren't quite strong enough to use it. So in that case, I suggest using dead soft wire and trying that. It's going to be less sturdy. So when you're making a ring, maybe like this, where everything's kind of wrapped and put together, or even this one, it will be fine. But when you're making a ring more like this, which this is actually even 18 gauge, or a ring that's, you know, something that you need more stability in the ring, I would suggest that you stick with the half hard, just so it stays more sturdy and doesn't bend around. But if you can, stick with the half hard wire. The other wires, like this kind of more craft wire, copper, actually copper you will find in half hard in different strengths, but this wire, for example, does not have a strength. It works similar to half hard, maybe it's not quite as hard as half hard, and same with the brass. Copper you will see half hard and dead soft, that sort of strengths sometimes when you find it. Sometimes you won't see that on there. So that is wire. And I just wanted to say, for some of the projects, I will also be suggesting 18 gauge wire, depending on the project. The vast majority of the rings, however, are with 20 gauge. So, the next material you'll need for a lot of the rings are beads. For many of the rings, or at least some of the rings will be just wire and the tools, and that's all you'll need. But for many of the rings, you're going to need beads, and what exact beads you need is going to vary based upon the project and kind of your preferences. So this is just a sample of a bead box I have. I just grabbed one. So most of the time I like to use kind of, these are 8mm beads. These are 10. Work fine too. Something that's big like this in most cases is not going to work so great because most of the time you're going to want it to go across your finger, and this is wider than my finger, so it's going to be slightly awkward, but you know, a lot of different beads will be fine. This is a gemstone bead, which is cool. So, and we'll also be using seed beads for some of the rings too. So in general, if you're making rings though, if you're making say a wire wrapped bead ring, you're just going to want any bead that catches your attention that looks cool on your finger. So there will be other materials. So there are other materials you can use when you're making rings besides just beads. In Rings Every Day Month Premium, we'll be making rings out of buttons. We'll be using some hardware. We'll be using some crystals from chandeliers, and things like that as well. So when you're making rings, just keep your mind open and just think of other cool things you could incorporate into your ring making. So I hope that makes you feel a little more prepared for Rings Every Day Month. I hope that you'll join us starting April 1st. If you are watching us on YouTube, if you click the link below, you can come over to read more about Rings Every Day Month, and you can sign up for the free or the premium version. There is a huge difference between the two. In both, you do get a daily email from me with inspiration and encouragement. But with the premium version, I will send you a new ring tutorial every single day. Now, the ring tutorials are all wire wrapped rings, and they're all, I would say, kind of advanced beginner, intermediate level. Although if you've never made rings before, you are going to be fine because I do very clear step-by-step instructions, and if you are willing and you're patient and you're ready to get started and you've watched some of my other kind of wire videos, then you are ready for this. If you are more advanced but you haven't made wire wrapped rings before, this is perfect. You can get the basic tutorials and then go crazy with them. So either way, it's going to be great. But even if you don't sign up for the paid version, make sure you sign up for the free version so you can get a reminder every day to make your ring and get encouraged that way. So click the link below to learn more about both versions, and we'll get started on April 1st.